This is Defenders TV Podcast, episode 70. This is San Diego Comic-Con 2016 Part 2 review, where we'll be talking about Marvel Netflix and, of course, Doctor Strange and the Marvel movies. Welcome back, Defenders, to our first podcast in about 2 months. This is episode 70 of Defenders TV Podcast. We're on a bit of our summer break at the moment, but nothing signifies the best part of the summer than San Diego Comic-Con. So we are coming back with our part 2 of our San Diego Comic-Con podcast, where we're talking about all the Marvel elements that happened over the weekend, all the TV and movie elements. Obviously, there was a lot of Marvel Netflix coverage there, so we'll be talking about all the Netflix shows and some Marvel movie coverage. Who am I kidding? That's all going to be about Doctor Strange. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hi, everyone. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
Welcome.
Absolutely. It is a wonderful, magical, mystical type of time that we live in. To think that we had both the Iron Fist first look at San Diego Comic-Con, followed by the panel of Doctor Strange and the second trailer, awesome. For me, at least two of my favourite characters and my favourite character, Doctor Strange, being introduced to rapturous crowds at San Diego Comic-Con. So this was awesome. This was just so awesome. I never thought that this would happen. I'm still pinching myself that this film, obviously, to be released in October of this year, is still happening. But it looked awesome. But I will restrain myself until we actually get into it, because otherwise I could just go into it now, and this podcast will be about an hour long.
Absolutely. So if you missed part 1 of our podcast, what we covered over there was on our DC podcast, Gotham TV podcast. We covered Gotham Season 3 trailer and some of the interviews with the cast over there. We covered Wonder Woman, Justice League, and of course, Suicide Squad, which is the next DC movie coming up on the slate. So because we talked about all the DC elements over there, we're going to reserve this for obviously Marvel. But if you do want to hear it, just pop on over to gothamtvpodcast.com/iTunes. Or since I've been doing a little bit of a project to put all of our podcasts in one location, you can find everything over at tvpodcastindustries.com/iTunes. You can get them all on iTunes over there. All 168 of our podcasts, John, so far.
Absolutely.
Pretty cool.
And of course, for all things Defenders, for all things Marvel, just go to defenderstvpodcast.com/iTunes. And of course, you can search Defenders TV Podcast on any good or evil podcast catcher. As well, we are on Twitter with DefendersCast, at DefendersCast, and of course, come and join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast.
Absolutely.
And also a quick shout out, of course, have to do this, as you'll notice. There is a lovely poster in the background there of Doctor Strange. This was from one of our listeners, Rebecca. Thank you so much for this. I certainly did not have this poster, and it is looking fantastic. And I believe it's the cover art for collected edition of Doctor Strange comics that is going to be released, I think, in hardback towards October, and the release of Doctor Strange the movie.
Awesome. That'll be really cool to read.
Yeah, really good.
One of the things I was going to say, one of the great parts about the group is there's loads of comic book recommendations over there as well. So if you're not a huge comic book reader, there's some really properly well-read comic book readers over there who are giving some great suggestions of comics.
Yeah, Moon Knight, I think, is one of them. The current run of Moon Knight has been recommended highly. So yeah, absolutely. Come on down and join us on our Facebook group.
Absolutely. I think it's time to get into it, though. John, we're going to start out with the Marvel Netflix coverage. That's kind of the main thrust of our show. We're going to hold back on our Doctor Strange discussion for a little while. But we had some pretty big reveals. Let's start off with the kind of short ones to begin with. The first short reveal, which we all knew was coming, especially after the excellent second season of Daredevil, we got the reveal that there is going to be a Daredevil season 3. The reveal itself is a very short video of effectively an underground tube station in New York. I guess it's the New York Underground or New York Metro, right? Where it's being revealed that we're going to be returning back to Hell's Kitchen. no date,
Excellent.
no announcement of when, but I think loads of the fans were kind of thinking that that they wanted to see this reveal and this announcement that we're going back to Hell's Kitchen with Daredevil. There's so many shows coming up that I think Netflix themselves are probably saying, we are going to do it, but if we release something now and we're not going to release the show for 2 or 3 years, maybe that might annoy the fans a bit more, but it does feel like it's going to be a while before we get a Daredevil show.
But absolutely justified given season 2 this year, and obviously with season 1, fantastic series of TV. They're put on Netflix for everyone to see all at once, no matter where you live. So absolutely great. And I mean, like, it's almost the wrong word to use, but like Netflix is churning out the stuff at the moment. What we've been watching, Stranger Things, really just great sort of tie back to the 80s, very nostalgic for those growing up in the 80s. But I mean, in terms of Marvel Netflix stuff, it is just so much. I mean, we've got Jessica Jones season 2, obviously Luke Cage that we're going to talk about, Iron Fist, Daredevil season 3, and of course, The Defenders and The Punisher.
Absolutely, and let's just stop right here.
Tons.
Just in case this is your first time joining us and you haven't actually joined us for our other 69 podcasts, what have we done on the other 69 podcasts? We've reviewed every single episode of the Netflix Marvel shows to date, and Agent Carter as well, which was going on concurrently while those Netflix shows were airing. So if you want to hear our in-depth thoughts about all of the Netflix shows so far, up to Daredevil season 2, the final episode, which we released about 2 months ago, just make sure you do subscribe to the podcast and go back and listen to those episodes. There's some really fun discussions about. And
of course, interspersed within all of that are 2 seasons of Agent Carter as well, and a couple of films.
Exactly. So what's this all leading to? Why do we start the podcast? Why is our name Defenders TV Podcast? Well, if you didn't know, it finally got revealed at the San Diego Comic-Con panel. We got the reveal of the image of the Defenders, showing that we will have the series next year, 2017.
Yeah, just a little kind of, just a reminder almost that this is happening. And of course, we see a hand. Is it a hand or the hand? And of course, it looked like it could be slightly alien to me, but it could also be grasping, kind of like that. But yeah, really good. And a voiceover from Stick there saying, you know, basically, what hope have you four got working together? You can't look after yourselves. So, you know, with all their problems, both, you know, can't get God out of their head, alcoholic, you know, former prisoner, and of course an orphan who has returned to New York. So like really good to see that. And of course what was really nice was that the typeface of the Defenders was like it was cut out of you know, one of the original Defenders comics. And of course I really like that, because maybe, just maybe, and I'm not gonna dwell on it too long, but maybe the Sanctum Sanctorum in New York will be the base of this for. Maybe not at once, maybe later on, and maybe there will be some form of strangeness that will happen within that miniseries.
Perhaps.
I'm hoping it could be a neat little tie-in between the film and TV universes of Marvel. But
2 tiny things.
I'm hoping.
Hopefully. 2 tiny things about the little teaser of the logo. I did like that it's made up of all the logos so far that we've seen. The Iron Fist logo was also revealed at New York Comic Con. Obviously San Diego Comic-Con, not New York Comic-Con. The Iron Fist logo was revealed there. That also forms part of the Defenders logo. I love the way it was made up. I love that we could see Alias Investigations, Nelson Murdoch, the prison where Luke Cage is. I love that all those elements were making up to form this Defenders piece. And as we said, with the grasping hand of the Hand, I'm almost definite that they're going to be the bad guys for this series, especially because Daredevil season 3 is probably going to take place after Defenders, so it would be likely that they keep that big bad that's run through 2 seasons of Daredevil as being the bad for the Defenders.
And of course there was that calling card of who is Danny Rand, and I think with that,
what a good way
we should move on to the first look, mini little trailer, only about a minute long, and that was released there at San Diego on the Marvel Netflix panel of the Iron Fist. wow. I mean, like, again, this is my second best thing of San Diego Comic-Con. Small but deadly. Really, it was superb. Just to see how, really Finn Jones is going to inhabit Danny Rand. We've seen a few stills, but it was nice to see him. I'm loving the look with the beard. Obviously, he might get, well, no, he will get, tidied up, get a shave. But we do see, the plane crash, and we see him sort of still strapped to the seat, lying in the snow, with what looks like to be two monks looking, over him, the Denzians of Kunlun, if you will, that find him and presumably take him back to, the city of Kunlun, and of course, presumably mountains, monks, and of course dragons.
Absolutely. So Iron Fist is a character that I know a bit about. I've read the most recent Immortal Iron Fist book, the kind of big collected book. I've read a lot of that, and the characters popped in and out of a lot of books that I used to read. But I know you're a huge fan of Danny Rand, particularly, and of that Iron Fist run, and a lot of the other Iron Fist runs. So to give a little perspective on what Iron Fist is to the listeners who may not know a huge amount about Iron Fist himself, the character has got a superpower, which is being able to channel his chi into his fists. Yeah,
into the Iron Fist. He's obviously, he becomes a martial arts expert. He gets this by defeating the dragon, I think it's Lobo, at Kunlun, and to become the Iron Fist, you must defeat this dragon. And many people try, and not everyone succeeds.
Right.
But certainly in this initial thing as well, this plane crash that we see the oxygen masks down, and presumably his mother, Heather Rand, there. And of course, this all ties into the origin that they both Danny and his mum and dad, along with his dad's business partner, Meacham, are going to try and find the next heir of Kunlun.
Right.
And of course, the plane is sabotaged. Now, we don't know here, it's a bit unclear whether his mum has survived the crash along with Danny, or whether she has still survived. In the origin, there is the classic aspect where his mum defends him from a pack of wolves after they've spurned Meacham's help, because Meacham ultimately
maybe spoilers.
Maybe spoilers here, but Meacham does things which doesn't necessarily endear him to Danny in the future, and certainly not to Danny's mum, Heather Rand.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. So I'm hoping that maybe there will be wolves here, and maybe the two monks looking at him are not looking at him through that whiteout of the snowstorm, maybe whilst he's still strapped to the airplane seat. Maybe it's sometime later after other events have taken place. Maybe. So it's really interesting. It's not entirely clear yet, but really good. Certainly immediately just tying Danny to his origin there, which is very good. And then obviously we see him head back and come to the Big Apple.
Absolutely. And one of the interesting things from the actual blurb about the Netflix series version of Iron Fist, it does say that he's a missing Danny Rand who returns to New York. So Kunlun, the city itself, only appears for a certain period of time, disappears for 20 years, I think it is 15, 20 years, something like that, which would tie up with the fact that it's a young Danny Rand making his way to the city and then returning to New York for the first time in the scenes that we see in this particular teaser, which I think is quite cool. At least they're keeping that bit. He's not someone that's gone away as a teenager and coming back when he's 25. He's been away for many years from when he's a young kid and coming back at this later age. So somewhere in his mid-20s. Yeah.
I mean, it's a mystical city. It is Kunlun. It's not yet average little village or
it's not a hamlet.
No, not at all.
Right. So that's really cool. And there's the only other real thing from that trailer. There's two more things. We do see the power of the Iron Fist.
We do. We see him knock and punch out a door, which is really cool. Shows off a bit of his power and so on. We don't see any kind of flaming hand where he's channeled his chi or anything like that. But that's really, really good. And of course,
the wall of a hospital, I think.
Yeah,
isn't it?
You see him tied up, struggling to get released. Presumably he's been sort of had the finger pointed at him by Meacham, maybe, or one of his children that we know has been cast within Iron Fist, to say that maybe he's mad, he's gone crazy, and he needs to be committed in some way. We don't know the context of that, but
from a casting perspective, just to mention it, so the only other person other than Finn Jones in the show is David Wenham, that we know from Lord of the Rings. He's been in a number of films, a number of TV shows as well, but that's probably the one I know him best from.
Yeah, and he's playing Meacham.
And he's playing Meacham, the older Meacham. There is a younger Meacham cast as well, so just to make that point.
Yeah, definitely. And so this is really cool. We see a little bit of the force behind his kung fu and his martial arts skill. But as I say, we don't see the flaming hand at all at this stage. But really good. Absolutely loved the logo then flying in, the classic Iron Fist logo.
Absolutely.
That is emblazoned on his chest. So really, really good. And of course, I am the Iron Fist. I hold back the storm when nothing else can. And of course, that's quite a nice little quote from the Iron Fist, because there is this talk of a coming storm throughout Daredevil, of course, with the hand, and all of this linking into this kind of mystical threat that is coming on New York City, and may or may not tie all these different Marvel Netflix shows together when they team up to become the Defenders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do still have that question as to who says the line, "Hello, Danny." I don't know who it is. I don't know whether it's Meacham. I'm thinking it's likely that's because it's the most recognizable actor, that it is the older Meacham. But we don't know yet. It could be anybody right now. But it's a lovely little teaser. Definitely wasn't expecting any footage to be shown at San Diego Comic-Con. I was actually expecting this would be something they'd hold until New York Comic-Con, because it's going to be about 7 or 8 months before we actually see the show. So got a long time to carry between now and then. Expecting a bit of a longer panel for Luke Cage, the next Netflix show that's coming out on September 30th worldwide, and confirmed again, just for our Irish and UK listeners, confirmed again to be released at 8:01 a.m. on the 30th of September. So we're looking forward to that.
Cool.
But that's the next panel, right? That's the big one, the big reveal. This was Netflix's first presence at San Diego Comic-Con. They've never actually been there before. They've been at New York 2 years in a row, doing big panels there. So this is the first time they've taken it to probably the biggest pop culture event, as we mentioned on our other podcast, probably the biggest pop culture event in the world now. So how do you think they did? They came along, they brought Luke Cage with them, the full panel of pretty much the full cast, obviously the director of the show, and this trailer that we're going to talk about. How do you think they did with they brought to the show?
Just the Iron Fist trailer.
The Luke Cage trailer as their kind of big reveal, plus the little snippets.
I think for their first time, I think maybe they've focused on Luke Cage. That's absolutely correct to do that. I think it's the next show up. They've obviously also just teased and reminded everyone that all these characters are going to become the Defenders as well. So it's just putting that out there again at the biggest event. I think it was good. I mean, I would suspect you have to have been in the panel to really appreciate it, because, I mean, the two trailers that we saw are quite short. I mean, the Iron Fist one is a first look. It's only a minute long. It gives you a really nice little intriguing little snippets of Danny Rand, that he's not in New York. He's making his way back to New York, older as an adult, after being lost and found by what looked like to be monks. And we have a fairly ominous "Hello, Danny." So it just encapsulates it quite nicely. And then we see Luke Cage, and again we have the trailer. I suspect the panel would have been absolutely brilliant as well to have been at.
Absolutely.
I think one of the things that we kind of noticed through a number of the different interviews that the director and the showrunner for Luke Cage, he basically seemed to hold music here really central to this character and to this series.
Absolutely, yeah. Starting out with the song that's been chosen for the Luke Cage trailer or teaser, which was ODB's "Shimmy Shimmy Ya." I don't know why I had to look at that. I've been singing it for the last for the last week.
Great tune.
Since I saw the trailer.
Great tune.
Really cool tune. But yeah, they have said that music's going to play a huge part in the show. That every episode is actually going to be named after a song by the band Gangstar. I'm going to have to brush up on my 90s rap, to be honest, and 90s R&B, to try and get some of that. But I was fascinated by some of the great interviews that were happening, where they were effectively talking about all the music that's going to be coming in. Each member of the cast, as they were cast, I loved this little tidbit of information.
This is great.
Yeah, that they were told to put together their top 10 songs or their playlist for their own character, and that's being incorporated as best possible into the show. So each character comes up with their own concept of who they are as a person through music, which I love.
It's so cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And you can see that he sees this world through music, through the musical legacy that Harlem has provided. Absolutely. Whether it's from jazz and blues through to rap and so on. I mean, really, really cool.
Yeah.
I like that kind of context of it, to be honest. I mean, it's so important. But yeah, I mean, as well, we got the Punisher showed up as a surprise as well.
That's right.
So I mean, they did. I think as a first go, it was really good. I mean, I do think the Luke Cage trailer was quite short, given that it is the next big trailer. But I mean, I really kind of enjoyed it. Again, we've seen him already. I suppose he's been introduced quite significantly just through Jessica Jones. So a lot of people are aware of him. It didn't need some kind of huge breakdown as to what this character was. Mm-hmm. Again, just bringing back to Doctor Strange, the first trailer of Doctor Strange, it really, in a nutshell, just went through his origin. It really introduced the character to a lot of people that probably wouldn't have known who the character of Doctor Strange was. It introduced it to a huge audience beyond fans of his. So, that was hugely important to do that. In some ways, a bit like with Thor as well, when he first came to town in the MCU, and probably even Iron Man for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was kind of interesting. And I think Luke Cage has had that introduction for fans who are at San Diego Comic-Con, for people who like to all the Marvel Netflix shows to date, and certainly Jessica Jones, obviously, there has been that introduction already.
Yeah.
So this really kind of was probably trying not to give too much away, but I mean, I really liked it. I thought this was his corridor scene. I mean, we've talked about the corridor fight that Daredevil had in season 1, which was just epic. In season 2, he had the stairwell fight and corridor fight again, reminiscent of his season 1 fight. And for me, this was Luke Cage's corridor fight from the show, where he's walking down the corridor with the car door. He's using it as a battering ram, a shield, an iron hug, so really, really good. And he's just using and abusing his environment as he walks, hand in the wall, pulls out a bit of lead piping or whatever. Hopefully it's not lead piping. Otherwise all the people in the building are probably kind of got problems with mental problems because of lead in the water. But all of this kind of stuff, really, really good. And obviously his hoodie riddled with bullets. So, I mean, at least for anyone who has missed anything with regards to Marvel Netflix, it's showing that this guy has got strength. He's really raw and visceral. And he is set out on a mission, by, I don't know the character's name, but he was the commissioner in The Wire.
That's right.
Police commissioner in The Wire, saying, you should go out there and help other people. Like maybe, I don't know whether it's his father, or a mentor or something like that. Maybe he's just come out of prison. He's, and he's ready to kind of rectify, his previous, life and atone for the prison sentence that he's just, been released from. So that, it sets it up as well a bit, but we see this really, visceral type of character. I think even more so than Daredevil. Daredevil still has got his kind of slight martial arts. This is pure punch bag as well.
But it shows you what a man with power and unbreakable skin, so he can take every single bullet that's being shot at him. He can take it and just keep moving. He's not, it's not coming into his flesh and he's just not being hurt by it. It's bouncing off him. The only thing that's being damaged is his clothes. This is really our first look at any moving images of Luke Cage since the little teaser that was at the end of Daredevil. And like you say, I was actually expecting a bit more. We're just over 2 months out from the show being released on the 30th of September, as we mentioned. Kind of expecting a bit of a longer trailer, a bit more of a story trailer so we can get a bit of an idea. By this time in Jessica Jones's run, I think we probably knew it was going to be all about Kilgrave. In this teaser trailer, we get an image of Cottonmouth, for a couple of seconds at the end of the teaser, where he effectively has effectively saying that you kick in a couple of guys in the city and now you think you can take me on. It feels like Cottonmouth has a bit of a history in the comic books with Luke Cage. He's a friend of his. He's the reason why Luke Cage went to prison, and this is why Luke Cage is coming back. So I feel they're probably keeping that dynamic between the two of them, that they do know each other. They've known each other growing up in the streets.
I mean, he's the Cottonmouth is the fly in the ointment, he's reminding Luke just who he is, where he's from, and that he knows him. Like, it's kind of that, Luke's in a sense trying to spread his wings, and he's being brought and pulled back down to his past life by Cottonmouth. So it frames the trailer quite nicely, I think, as well. And it was good to see just this first glimpse of Cottonmouth.
Absolutely.
Like, he was there as well. I can't remember the actor's name, but
it's Mahershala Ali.
Okay,
from House of
Cards.
Awesome.
And obviously there was Misty Knight there as well. So on the panel, so it's really good to have Misty Knight from the comics in this series as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you kind of picked up over the course of the interviews is Misty Knight's relationship, I suppose, in the show. She is the partner of Frank Whaley's character. Frank Whaley is one of the other big actors on the show. The two of them are detectives partnering up together to investigate something that's happened in Harlem, and that's where their paths cross with Luke Cage, which is pretty cool. I like that she's a detective. They say their relationship is really good comrades. They've known each other for years and worked together with each other for years. Very humorous kind of relationship, as you would expect from Misty Knight.
Absolutely. And I think as well, I'm expecting that Luke Cage will have some introduction to Danny Rand as well, given you have the heroes for hire aspect between both Luke Cage and the Iron Fist in the comics as well. So in the same sense that Luke Cage was introduced in Jessica Jones, that we have here an introduction of the Iron Fist within the Luke Cage series would be really cool, I think.
Absolutely. And considering Luke was so central within within Jessica Jones and had 4 or 5 good episodes that he was heavily involved in, the one other question that pops up still for me is, when does this take place? Are we going to see 4 or 5 episodes that take place showing his origin after he gets out of prison, and then it switches over to being why he left Harlem to go to meet Jessica Jones, and then comes back to Harlem? Or is this all after Jessica Jones? Is it all after he's returned from Hell's Kitchen to Harlem? I'm kind of intrigued to see how they work that in, and will we see an appearance of Jessica Jones, considering their characters are intertwined?
No, absolutely, yeah. As you say, will we see the bar? Will we see him setting up his bar? I mean, all these different things we already know, so it'll be interesting to see how they integrate them, or where they are on the timeline with respect to the show. So, yeah, I think definitely. I'm looking forward to Luke Cage. I mean, I know him from Heroes for Hire. I know him from the links in the comic with Danny Rand and Iron Fist. But still, it's a character that I wouldn't have automatically have followed. I don't think. So I'm really intrigued to see how they interpret the character, and whether they put the bits of Luke Cage that I do know in the show, or whether to be honest, I'm just excited to find out more about this character. We had the Sweet Christmas
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, in Jessica Jones, classic line from the run of comics in the 70s, from Heroes for Hire and so on. They worked it in there. I mean, fantastic. So, that's something immediately they went, I remember that. I recognize that. So I'm really intrigued to see, what new stuff I learn about Luke Cage, how Marvel Netflix, sort of deal with his character, what new things they do, what things maybe they twist, and what things that I remember from the comics they bring. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think along with Jessica Jones, these are the two characters from the Defenders set that I know least about, or would have done. I mean, Jessica Jones primarily, but Luke Cage would be coming in second there for that.
But you're just hoping that he says Sweet Christmas again and has the tiara on, of course. Yeah. Afro.
Definitely.
Yellow top. Really looking forward to seeing this. And I think, to be honest with you, I can kind of see what they've been talking about for months now, about it being a different feeling of a show. Just even this teaser and the interviews that we heard over the course of the weekend, really gets me excited about covering the show. There's 13 episodes coming up. Cheo Coker, the showrunner for the show, has to be, for me, of every single one of the directors and writers and showrunners that were on stage, he seems to be, he's the one that's kind of G'd me up to get me going for this, more than anybody else. He's got me really excited about his vision for this show. Kind of been told that he's left alone. He can do whatever he wants to with his show. And basically he works directly across the way from the writers for the other shows, for Daredevil, for Jessica Jones. And he can just pop over to them and go, do you think this will work? Am I allowed to use your character this way, or something like that is the way he says it. And they kind of say, well, we're doing this with them. Can you move on to another character? But he says, other than that, very little interference from either Marvel or Netflix. He's allowed to tell his own story, and he's a huge fan of Luke Cage. So, that's always good. So really looking forward to seeing what comes on 30th of September.
Yeah.
So John, that's Marvel Netflix. Overall, pretty good showing from them.
Yeah.
They didn't do what some people were expecting they did when they had the New York Comic Con panel last year for Jessica Jones. They showed the entire first episode of the show about a month and a half before the show was released. So a lot of people were expecting that the Comic Con panel would get to see the first episode of Luke Cage. They didn't, but they got the reveals of some Iron Fist trailer, the Defenders, the announcement of Daredevil Season 3, and an appearance by the Punisher, as well as the Luke Cage footage. So lots shown there in their short time on the tape.
And it will be interesting to see what they bring to New York Comic Con, because obviously Luke Cage will have hit Netflix at that stage. So they won't be, it won't be an exclusive to show any of the episodes of Luke Cage. It could be that they will show a first episode of maybe the Punisher, possibly Iron Fist, maybe Jessica Jones Season 2. Who knows?
Or else they may have the exclusive meeting of all 4 Defenders on stage, which I think would be quite cool.
Because they had 3 out of the 4 last year.
That's right.
Which we attended. And
with
this
the
year,
4th in the hall.
Yeah, with the 4th
Finn
in the
Jones
hall.
doing interviews for Walking Dead in the same hall.
Game of Thrones, I think. Yeah.
Oh, Game of Thrones, sorry, of course.
There are zombies in Game of Thrones.
There are.
Yeah.
But with him doing interviews for Game of Thrones, I always wondered, after he'd been cast, whether he got cast because of his time at New York Comic Con, whether they met backstage and went, actually, you'd be quite good for Iron Fist. Anyway, I think that's enough of the TV side of the house. I think it's time to get on to the movie side of the house. Where do you want to start, John?
It's time to get on to the thing that made San Diego Comic-Con for me. Okay. Like, there's all this thing about who did better, Marvel or DC. I actually loved the DC stuff this year. I thought, actually, really, really cool with Wonder Woman and with Justice League. For me, though, just the fact that we had the Doctor Strange second trailer. There were 5 minutes of the show of the show. Still on Marvel Netflix. 5 minutes of the film still shown. The meeting of the Ancient One and Stephen Strange, and of course, there was the kind of the stand-up panel of Doctor Strange with director Scott Derrickson, who's done The Exorcism of Emily Rose and Sinister, are the 2 ones that I know him for. And then, of course, Benedict Cumberbatch, Benedict Wong, there was Mads Mikkelsen, there was Chiwetel Ejiofor, that's it. Thank you. And Tilda Swinton. So, and there was also, I've forgotten her name. Rachel McAdams.
Of course.
Who's playing Christina Palmer. So really, really cool. And one of the things I loved from these panels, actually, at least on the Doctor Strange one, is that none of them had seen this 5 minutes. And to see their reactions after the end of the panel was awesome, because I mean, it reflected mine after seeing the second trailer. And I think, obviously, that's where we'll start with the Marvel films, is the Doctor Strange trailer 2. So much in it. Absolutely adored it. I'm really excited for this. One of the things was we still got the Inception type stuff going on with buildings folding in on one another, but we did start to see the magic coming on the screen, how that was going to be interpreted. So really, really good. There was the magic glyphs, which I just loved how they wrapped up his arm, but, again, facing his palm as he was doing it. I loved how he, was practicing. I mean, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about Doctor Strange, and I'm really glad that they pulled it out. It's that, how do I get from here as Stephen Strange to there where you are, the Ancient One? And she goes, well, how did you become a doctor? It's through study and practice. And that's one of the great things that I really like about this character is it's not given to him. He has to learn it, and he has to become a master of the mystic arts. He is a student, and there are other students there who have, different capabilities, different levels of skill, compared to Doctor Strange. And, we see them all training together. We see, Baron Mordo as well as, Wong, training them all together in the courtyard, of the monastery, of the temple. So I really, really liked that, so much. I mean, I think the effects here were just awesome. I've always said the story has to stand on its own, but the effects here were great. We had, amongst other things, we had the Shield of Seraphim right at the end, where he's kind of protecting himself from both sides from a lot of kind of magical energy.
That's the kind of orange glyphs on either side.
Yeah, it's immediately after the Wi-Fi password joke, which I just loved. It. I mean, it closes out the trailer. I mean, I'm going to be all over the place here. Don't think that I'm going to be going through this in a structured way from start to end.
I was hoping.
But it's just, it was so exciting to see that at the end. It was like, I wasn't expecting it. I mean, that just looked like a riot of colour. But that was the Shield of Seraphim. You have that kind of flaming whip as well. And the interesting thing there, that seemed to be all happening in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Mads Mikkelsen's character, Caecilius, was in the foyer, in the hall, the entrance hall to the Sanctum Sanctorum. So, he's infiltrated, Doctor Strange's base, basically. So really, really cool.
And can I just say, yes, really one of the cool things as well about these kind of panels where we have actors like Mads Mikkelsen being interviewed, they do get asked how you pronounce the name of that character, because Caecilius would be a character that wouldn't be well known from the comic books, appeared a couple of times. When you read his name, you read it in your own mind, whatever way you want to read it. It's, but Mads does give a pretty good interpretation of it. I do think, obviously, with his own accent, again, you could be interpreting it slightly differently than he actually interprets it in his head, but Caecilius is what we're going to be going for from now on, I think, right?
Definitely. And of course, Doctor Strange would not be Doctor Strange without the Cloak of Levitation.
Absolutely. What a moment.
I mean, for me, with the Shield of Seraphim at the end, that was also one of the other money shots of this, where, he's not grabbing it and chucking it round. He's essentially gesturing to the cloak to go around him, and the cloak obeys his command. This cloak is a cloak, it's not a cape, and it is a magical item. So this was just superb. I love just how he did it. And, earlier on in the trailer, you see him standing back looking at the Cloak of Levitation behind the glass box. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I've been reading back on some of the early Strange Tales comic books, the ones that used to have Nick Fury and Doctor Strange in it. Kind of cool that Cloak of Levitation was right from the first issue. We do see it in there. It's something that he's used many, many times. So really cool to see that being a major part of his character. It's what allows him to fly effectively as well. So he can go and fly like Thor does with his hammer, not like Jessica Jones does because she jumps really high. He flies, right? So it's but with the cloak only. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I loved how they captured the interdimensions and realms and moving from different realms here. I thought it was really interesting, and it wasn't just one style. You have him practicing with the green glyph on the book, and he kind of creates almost like a transparent mirror which has got other faces of himself reflected in it, and cool. different Doctor Stranges across different realms, doing different things at that particular time, across time, and across realms. Mm-hmm. So really interesting. Then you have the moment where he's walking towards the three windows. One of them has a mountain scene, one of them has a coastal scene, and the other has a forest scene.
That's right.
Different perceptions of reality here. Then you see Mads Mikkelsen, you see the floor moving around like you did from trailer 1. You see the buildings falling in on one another, crossing over one another. You see the lady with the yellow cloak, changing and fractalizing, the world. And in particular, that moment where, the Ancient One leads Doctor Strange through that kind of fractalized glass, of reality. Such a great effect. Like, amazing. And it kind of moves into the kaleidoscope, sort of imagery as it moves into the Marvel Studios logo. Yeah. I just thought that was such a great idea, this fractured kind of mirrored kind of look or fractals of reality.
Yeah.
And of course fractals within chaos theory anyway would be this whole thing that you can there's kind of no end. You look in deeper and you have another fractal and so on. It just splits out. It's almost like infinitely long edges and concepts. So it's really interesting.
Lesson there, kids.
Well, no, fractals in nature, so
yeah.
Things like snowflakes and so
Absolutely,
on. Like we saw in the Whiteout on the Iron Fist trailer.
Yes.
See, I love both of these. And then, so I loved how it was just kind of done really differently. The fiery teleportation portals. So we get to learn here that they can move vast distances, and across space.
Fabulous.
In an instant. Really good. So we see, both, the Ancient One and Doctor Strange coming to the top of the mountain, somewhere on Earth through one of these, teleportations, devices or portals, I suppose is more accurate. But I think if you look briefly, I think you can see the fact that on the other side of the portal is like the temple, I think.
Right, okay. So that's the first trip.
Yeah.
Effectively. Right.
And we also see the lady in the yellow cloak, which I think is in London as well. I think she is in London.
Interesting.
There. And certainly this would link into the prequel comics that are currently out at the moment, and it has a similarly cloaked figure, sort of messing around with the mystical energy in different realms, and being pursued by Wong, by Caecilius, and also Baron Mordo as well. So,
that's right.
Very similar, but I wonder, because I haven't read part 2 of that prequel comic, so I don't know whether we find out who she is.
It's not out yet, so you're okay. 25th of
just
25th
the
of
first
August.
one so
first
far.
One's just come out.
But I wonder who this person in the yellow cloak is. I was trying to think, who is it? Is it someone who's hiding in plain sight? So I do wonder whether it is Rachel McAdams' character. I'm wondering whether that she is clear at all, and that she's hiding in plain sight, maybe assisting Doctor Strange or Stephen Strange, as a sort of a protector, because I wonder if it's that, or maybe it's the Ancient One, but I didn't think it was the Ancient One.
For Rachel McAdams, the character name that's been given is Christine Palmer, right?
Yeah.
There's enough of those letters in there that you could make Clea out of that with Christine Palmer. There's definitely an L in there, an E, an A C. You could add an H as well if you spell Clea differently. But yeah, it is possible that they are hiding the name in there.
Well, they were hiding the face.
You are absolutely convinced that this is a female character underneath that cloak. I feel it's probably the person they're chasing within the comic, the preview comics. I don't think they're going to catch her. I think that will lead into the film quite closely. So I think that's the character that it is. It's either that or there is Nico Minoru from Runaways, which is the other female master of the mystic arts that we found out in the prequel comics. Really cool, just a connection there to the comic books that there is this character from the Runaways, a great character, really loved character. That could be making its way in through Doctor Strange, which is a really interesting route into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because there's not really a connection to those characters. So I'm intrigued to see that. Yeah. I'm intrigued to see if we do see Nico in the movie.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, it could be the Ancient One. Maybe it's just Clea. Maybe it's not Rachel McAdams being Clea. Maybe it's just Clea. Yeah. Or something like that. I think one of coming to the Eye of Agamotto now is, there's been a lot of talk about, what Infinity Gem is going to come up in Doctor Strange. Will it be the Time Gem? Will it be the Soul Gem? And so on. And it's quite interesting because we get 2 glimpses of the Eye of Agamotto here in this trailer. And it has the seal of Vishanti, the same seal that's on Doctor Strange's round window in his Sanctum Sanctorum. Yep. It's a protective seal against evil. It's in that sense. So the Eye of Agamotto does have a protective seal over it, and I wonder whether ultimately that's one of the gems. And if I'm to guess which one it might be, I think it would be the Time Gem. And one of the aspects that I think as well, which comes on later on in the trailer, is the Ancient One says, I've spent so many years peering through time, looking for you. Has the Ancient One been using the Eye of Agamotto to find out who the next Sorcerer Supreme is going to be? So really interesting. And similarly, in the same way that from the comics, Stephen Strange, in the same way that he was on Hydra's watch list in The Winter Soldier, that, Clea has been hiding in plain sight. He has had protectors watching over him, with the idea that maybe he is the Sorcerer Supreme. But until that leap is taken, they don't actually know. So it's kind of all really interesting to see how that's gonna work out, really. Yeah. And I think
there was definitely a few mentions.
There's so much to say.
I know. There was definitely a few mentions from the panel where Chiwetel Ejiofor, again, I can't get it right when I say it out loud, but I do know how to say it. We'll just call him Chewy because that's what his friends call him. Where he did mention that Benedict Cumberbatch's Stephen Strange is a very special master of the mystic arts. He is definitely someone that they've all been watching out for. Again, it came through in the mention from the Ancient One, from Tilda Swinton, when she was saying, not all of us who are masters of the mystic arts have a big light over our head, kind of pointing towards Stephen Strange as well, saying he does have a light over his head. He is someone that we've all been kind of watching out for and protecting for. So the masters do look like they're the ones that are have been protecting Stephen. So he gets to this age and goes to the training. So I think that was quite cool.
Definitely. I mean, some of the vistas in this trailer of the fight scenes. I mean, there's the one where there's Doctor Strange, and I presume it must be Caecilius fighting, and the reality is being built back together. I'm wondering, does that mean that Stephen Strange is winning because he's repairing the destruction that has maybe been wrought on that particular realm by Caecilius? There's but standing over on the sides of skyscrapers, looking out at skyscrapers going horizontal, vertically, angled, all that kind of stuff. The reality being warped by Caecilius and his acolytes, really good. You see one where there's one of those portals, the fire portals, and he turns the the streetscape on an angle, and you see I think it's Mordo and Doctor Strange just sliding past the portal. I don't know, are they trying to make it through it or something? Really, really good. I think one of the interesting things from the panel on Mads Mikkelsen's character that he said was, you know, he was asked whether he was a villain, and he said no. He said, like any good villain or any good bad guy, he believes in what he's trying to do, and that he's trying to bring a better world, but just through a different route.
Yeah.
And it's interesting with regards to the Shambhala joke, actually, because aspects of the Shambhala, that was a graphic novel in the 80s, done in a very gorgeous artistic style, very different.
Actually very interesting, yeah.
And it was tweeted by Scott Derrickson before I think he started filming, or very early on whilst he was filming. And, you know, there was sort of notions about whether that was going to be the storyline and so on. And the interesting thing from that is that it references the Lords of Shambhala, and the whole book is about a golden age of humanity that will be ushered in. And that Doctor Strange can usher this in, but he finds out that basically most of humanity will actually have to be sacrificed in order to achieve that.
Interesting.
And so, you know, it's kind of, it's that bittersweet, you can almost have, like heaven or Shambhala or peace, but it comes at a cost.
Right.
It's very boldly go where no man has gone before type of thing, but it is really, really good in that sense. That's the main premise of the Shambhala graphic novel. So I just wonder whether that is one of the things that maybe just being riffed on in the story. I mean, I love that little joke anyway. That was
Absolutely,
very cool.
Yeah, it was great.
You know,
So it's really interesting. They could have taken the storyline from one of the comic books and transported it onto Caecilius, so that he is actually going to be using, going to be doing something that Stephen would never have done. I really like that concept. It's really cool. It does lead me directly to the line from the trailer that probably stood out to me as I didn't get immediately. Is this what they said or not? So the line from the trailer is either, you'll die protecting this world, or we'll die protecting this world. And I couldn't catch it because it comes straight in from quite a loud scene directly into Mads Mikkelsen saying the line. So it's either we'll die protecting this world, so potentially the world that they've now created, or you'll die protecting this world, saying that Stephen will die.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a series of voiceover that Mads Mikkelsen does here. You know, he goes, "I am death, pain, I'll die protecting this world," or it's "we'll die protecting this world." So it could be that, you know, they are trying to achieve Shambhala, that it will be a utopia, everyone will live in peace. It's just that there will only be certain people.
Yeah.
Because other people, or most of humanity, will have to have been sacrificed. So it's really interesting to see how this will work out. I've always loved Mads Mikkelsen's eyes, and they're looking even better now. Like, there's some really nice close-ups of the makeup there used to show that kind of fractured aspect around his eyes. Again, maybe it mirrors that fractal imagery that we see in the temple. I really loved the feel of the music in this trailer. Really kind of electronic, kind of very sci-fi. It really good. What is it? Michael Giacchino, who did Up, is doing this. So I really loved it. It was very Philip Glassy, actually.
Yeah. And of course, he does the Star Trek theme, the new Star Trek theme. And worked with Benedict Cumberbatch when he played John Harrison.
That's true. Like, I love that, it really felt modern. It felt a bit discordant, as I say, very like Philip Glass, but in a faster way, in a more sort of modern, way, I suppose, in that sense. So I really like that. And then, again, just how Doctor Strange is going to integrate into the rest of the MCU will be something to behold. I love the fact that, you know, will he link up with Scarlet Witch? I mean, she has magic, but it's kind of a different source that it comes from.
She likes to bend reality.
Yeah,
definitely.
Iron Fist, again, I'd love to see that crossover to the TV. Has worked a lot in TV, so he might be up for that.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's the Avengers and the Infinity Gauntlet Wars. What will be his role in that? I mean, we see Avengers Towers.
Yes, we do.
Falling into one of these holes as reality is being bent, or the realms of New York are being manipulated, which is really cool. Take that, Tony. I wonder which of the Avengers, if any, might have some kind of cameo. What will be the post-credit scene thing? Really, just really, really cool. But, I mean, it's funny. I still think this feels a bit like it's under the radar, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I feel, and not so much that, that it's being ignored. I actually just feel that it's not being talked about much because actually they don't seem to be able to talk too much about it. I actually feel that Marvel has got this in serious kind of lockdown actually until it's released because, there was a lot more, or it felt, the narrative coming from San Diego felt like there was a lot more talk about Black Panther, about Homecoming, Spider-Man Homecoming, whereas this film is in 3 months' time. It's released in this year. So it's not that it's flying under the radar. That's maybe a bit too much, but it still feels like it's just sort of dipping its head out above, or that, it'll be interesting to see how it comes up, but I think it's more to do with the fact that actually director and cast are more on lockdown about releasing maybe too much about it.
Maybe.
And I did like the idea that Scott Derrickson said, you will be able to speak. I'm so sorry.
It's fine.
I loved it where he said, back in the 60s, Doctor Strange was introduced to the Marvel comic universe. It was a left turn for Marvel. It brought a whole new perspective, a whole new type of area that Marvel Comics moved into and explored and wrote stories about. And he said that, this film will do that. So it's really interesting to see how that will work.
Yeah, when he was introduced, there was no origin story. There was, it was a whole world of fascinating kind of imagery that was being released, stuff that they'd never seen in comic books before. So very different from what had been produced in Marvel in the past, definitely. Overall, I kind of think they're probably aiming for the kind of middling level Marvel films. This definitely shouldn't be compared to the box office of something like Avengers or Captain America, the third film that made $1 billion. I don't think it's going to get that level of box office, but it could be the breakout hit like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they were expecting a middling hit and ended up getting one of their most successful films so far. It is a very unusual film for Marvel. It always has been. They'll do the usual Marvel thing of tying it in some way to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I don't think they're expecting it to do huge numbers. I don't think they need it to do huge numbers. They've made billions and billions of dollars. So I don't think they need it to make a huge amount of money. So I'm not too sure what the outcome's going to be, but I'm really looking forward to it, particularly after this weekend in San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah,
I mean, I think first and foremost, I just hope it's a good story. I hope it's well received by fans and by non-fans, regular non-comic book fans.
Absolutely.
As well as the critics, I really do.
So basically you're hoping that it's not the David Hasselhoff version of Nick Fury that I got, as well, what you're saying. Okay, good.
Yes, I really hope it's not. Just one last shout out. Okay. Obviously, because we got to see Wong for the first time as well in this trailer, and he is a master of the mystical arts as well. And that's something coming from this prequel comic that we're learning, is that, there are multiple masters of the mystical arts, but I suppose there can only be one sorcerer supreme.
Exactly.
But, he is a drill sergeant. Again, on the panel, in the trailer, I should say, we see him teaching the other students at the temple where the Ancient One resides. And on the panel, he said, he's the drill sergeant. When he sat down with Kevin Feige to discuss the character, they wanted to, reboot, update, and move him away from being this manservant who just served tea. And, you know, hopefully we'll see a bit of Wong doing some kick-ass stuff.
Absolutely.
As well.
So despite Benedict Wong being British, he's not going to be serving any tea, is what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
And I'd love to see how his relationship with Stephen Strange works. Because, I mean, it's one of those really cool partnerships within the comics. I know he was being his manservant, but it's I've always seen it more as a partnership. It's been like the Alfred and Batman type of thing, you know.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned on the last podcast that he's the one that watches over Stephen when he's on the other realms. He's the one that kind of protects the body while his soul is traveling, or his spirit is traveling to the other realms. Definitely, yeah, good chat out there. So we have so much more to talk about with Doctor Strange. I know this is just a teaser. We've talked for half an hour before about the other trailer that was going on. We have about 4 more hours of coverage of Doctor Strange coming up. In our next episode, we'll be talking about Doctor Strange 1978 to start off our Summer of Strange podcasts.
And that is strange.
That is strange, but really interesting. I've watched it before, as has John. It was the pilot for a possible TV series in the time when we had things like Incredible Hulk on TV. So really interested to watch that again and bring along our other podcast host, Chris, who's never seen it before, a younger guy than us. I don't think he remembers much about the Incredible Hulk TV series, let alone seeing what the 70s TV shows will have in store for him.
Rather than nostalgia, it will be, what the fuck?
Hell is that? Yeah, absolutely. After that, we will then be going into our second episode of The Summer of Strange, which is the animated show, the animated
really
series. That's going to be really interesting. So we've definitely watched that one a couple of times, really enjoyed that. And again, looking forward to seeing it and reviewing it for the podcast.
Absolutely. And this is all just to lead up towards when we start on coverage of Marvel Netflix's Luke Cage, which drops at the end of September, 30th of September. 801
our time. Yep.
And so we have a slight little competition for Summer of Strange. We have the prequel comics to the film to give away, as well as a online code for the current run Doctor Strange comic book as well. So yeah, basically for this competition, it is really quite simple. You can leave your thoughts, leave a review on Defenders TV podcast on iTunes or any other good podcast catcher where you can leave reviews. And the best one, well, all the reviews will be put into a hat.
Yes.
If you can email us at defenderstvpodcast.com or leave a voicemail. Or leave an email at feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com to say that you've left a review. Then we will put them in a hat and pull them out towards the end of our Summer of Strange. And this is, again, for a chance to go in to win the prequel comic series in hard copy, but also then a comic book reader code in order to get the current Doctor Strange series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really looking forward to that. Hope to be able to give something back to one of our listeners who's leaving us a review. It always helps people find us, and as we get into a new show coming out, if you've left us a review before, you can just update it and resave it over the top of your old review. That will count you into the competition. But if you don't mind, just pop us an email to feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. That just makes me keep a track of it so that I know exactly when people have left reviews, so I can pop it all in a hat when it comes up to the end of our coverage of Strange.
Absolutely. And I mean, for our Summer of Strange, any thoughts on what you're expecting, what you're hoping for the Doctor Strange movie in October this year?
Yeah.
Please send them in. Send them either into feedback@defenderstvpodcast.com. Leave them on our discussion boards on our Facebook group. Again, facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. If it's nice and succinct, then obviously @DefendersCast is our Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So of course you can leave something there, and we can add this into the podcasts when we review the 1978 version of Doctor Strange as well as the animated series. Of course, we have voicemail as well on our website. You can leave a 90-second voicemail there if you want that added to the podcast as part of discussing all things Doctor Strange. Just go to www.defenderstvpodcast.com and leave a voicemail there. But of course, this is all leading to, sorry, Luke Cage, Doctor Strange, the movie, October 2016. Lands in Europe first, and then I think it's the 4th of November that it lands in North America and probably worldwide.
Yeah, I believe so. It's 5th of November, I think, when it comes out worldwide. So hopefully we'll get to see the premiere of that. We have got covered tons here on what happened from Marvel. There were a couple of the things that happened at San Diego Comic-Con
Baby
from
Groot.
Marvel. Baby Groot. Interesting. So let's quickly go through them. I know we're kind of at the end of the time that we had for the podcast, so we'll just go quickly through them. We've got Black Panther. No footage revealed, but Ryan Coogler did announce that he has started filming on it. It hasn't announced that they started filming on it. They're not filming for another couple of months. He's getting the scripts together for it. He again seems somebody that is really, really excited. Pointed out the seat he was sitting in Hall H in San Diego Comic-Con 5 years ago. He was sitting right at the back, right down the back, and now he's standing up in front of a huge audience, revealing that he's the one that's guiding Black Panther to the screen.
Really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing Black Panther. I mean, the director did Creed, so I really like such a great modern classic film. And of course, we've seen the Black Panther introduced in Civil War.
Yeah.
And so I just I think so looking forward to this.
Absolutely.
Phase 3 of Marvel is looking pretty sweet.
Yeah, Chadwick Boseman was a fantastic actor and really pulled off a great part that we didn't expect to be so central to the movie.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to seeing him. The one piece that was announced at the show that I hadn't heard before anyway was Denai Guerrera from The Walking Dead.
That's true.
Michonne from The Walking Dead, one of my favourite all-time characters, is going to be in Black Panther as well. So she's joining the cast.
There's I can't remember the name of the bodyguards to the Black Panther. Is it one of those? I can't remember what they're called. No. Anyway, still fantastic casting. Can't wait for that.
Just great to see Denai Guerrera get a movie role. She's done such sterling work on The Walking Dead, and now being in the Marvel universe. Really excited to see what she brings.
Baby Groot.
Okay, all right. Let's get on to Guardians of the Galaxy
Groot.
2, another panel.
Volume 1.
Which
Volume 2. Sorry, Volume 2.
Which
Baby Groot.
did not have any footage again at the panel
Baby Groot.
that we saw. I believe there was some footage shown, but it's not ready for public consumption.
But Yonder came on in blue.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Rooker
from Walking Dead.
Crazy Michael Rooker.
Yes,
fantastic.
We love him, but we've heard that he's very difficult. You just can't work out what way he's going to
really
be
good,
on stage.
Good.
So really interesting to see him there. I loved the fact that they had the villains of the movie all dressed up in their full costume
really
makeup,
good.
coming up and just kind of leading everything throughout the panel, just to be a good fun foil.
Yeah,
for
it was
everybody.
really good fun, and I think Kurt Russell really, really good. Obviously introduced as Star-Lord's father, one of the more weird characters in the Marvel universe, a planet with a beard. But really, really cool. As he came out on stage, all these guys were given loads of hassle, really making it, given a lot of hassle to all the different characters and the cast members that came out on stage. But they went to shake Kurt Russell's hand. He put his hand out and then just did the slide thing. Really cool. And he was like, a bit of revenge from the cast. But really cool. Yeah,
absolutely. So that was cool. But again, not any footage that we saw. We've heard some basic descriptions of it. But again, as the footage isn't officially released, we're not going to really talk about it on the podcast. I've read little bits and pieces about what was it about, but since they're not ready to show it, we're not ready to talk about it. Yeah. So I think crack on to the final one, John. You have mentioned earlier on. The
Spider-Man
big surprise guest.
Homecoming, yeah. Tom Holland and all his high school friends came out on stage. They also showed a little bit of footage. Again, we didn't get to see it. But again, I love this, as they did for Doctor Strange. I loved that they showed the cast these little snippets that they hadn't seen before in the final version. I mean, Tom Holland was absolutely stoked for this. It was a really interesting thing. Basically, the director for Homecoming is saying this is a high school movie. That's what, we've seen billionaires, we've seen gods, and now we're going to effectively see puberty, played out in the Marvel Universe. So really, really good. I think, the moderator of this panel of the Marvel session was saying, that this was kind of almost like a John Hughes type. That's what he kind of motioned at the time. This kind of high school angst, all this kind of, this whole thing being introduced in Spider-Man Homecoming. I think as well that there was is it Vulture that is being touted as the big bad here.
That's right.
As well. So very,
there'll be
very
some
cool.
concept art of the fight between young Spider-Man and Vulture.
Yeah.
I think there's no need to call him young Spider-Man. I keep forgetting Spider-Man as I know him and as I've read him for so many years has always been the teenager in high school. So I'm kind of happy that they're doing another high school story. I think the only problem with the Tobey Maguire movies, which I loved when I watched them when they came out first, was that he grew up, because then you get into stuff that Spider-Man doesn't usually, it doesn't work very well with Spider-Man when he's trying to pay a mortgage on a house and hold down a job with 2 kids, that doesn't really work for Spider-Man. I like the character being in that situation where he's in high school. So hopefully we'll get at least 1 or 2 good films while he's in high school. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to. Overall, I think this was probably the biggest San Diego Comic-Con for movies and TV anyway. That was out there. There's been so much, obviously, comic book news that's come out there that we just couldn't possibly cover, on the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed part 1 and part 2 of our Comic-Con coverage, where we covered all of the DC stuff and, obviously all of the Marvel stuff on this podcast. One other thing stood out to me, I think, for this.
Yes.
For the show, we did talk about Sherlock over on our Gotham podcast. For me, the other big thing that stood out was the first trailer for American Gods, a new TV show coming from Starz Network, basically led by the showrunner of Hannibal, Brian Fuller, who I absolutely adore his work. I loved what he did with Hannibal.
Wait.
And the book, if you've never read the book American Gods, it's based on a book by Neil Gaiman, who is my absolute favorite author, and was also a comic book writer in the 80s, who wrote an absolutely brilliant set of comic books called Sandman. I don't know why I'm saying cold. You should know this. If you don't know this, get out, buy Sandman, give up Marvel for a little while, read through all of those, come back to Marvel for his brilliant,
absolutely fantastic twist.
1692, his hysterical version, 1602. That's
my goodness.
Ooh. 1602, the tale of the Marvel Universe if it had happened during Victorian or Elizabethan England.
Yeah. 1602, yeah.
There you go. That's what
fantastic,
brilliant.
Fantastic take on the Marvel characters and the Marvel Universe. If they want to do a period drama MCU film, that is the one to do.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So I've jumped all the way and circled right the way back around, away from talking about American Gods, a very dark story of what happens when the gods of old Europe meet the new gods of America. Really intriguing story. I'm so excited to see what they do with this on TV, and the casting has been impeccable.
This looks awesome.
Yeah, really, really excited.
Wednesday looks very, very cool. Inhabited by Ian McShane. Really, he just looked really good.
So perfect
as the role.
Cast.
Perfect.
So perfectly cast. Anyway, that's just another little snippet of some of the other things that we saw at San Diego Comic-Con.
Absolutely. And a bit like with our podcast of season 3 of Hannibal, we would hopefully, if we have the time, it is one project that we would be thinking of doing over on TV podcasting. TV podcast and Defenders TV podcast podcasts. And just remember, before we say ta-ta and leave you after our San Diego coverage of Marvel, our part 2, that Summer of Strange will kick off in August. And with the competition, please leave a review on the podcast. Tell us what you think. the reviews help other people to find our podcast, and all leading up to the Luke Cage coverage at the end of September, when that's dropped by Marvel Netflix on Netflix. So can't wait to do that. Remember the competition: 2 comics for the Prelude Doctor Strange comics for the film out in October, as well as then obviously an electronic code for the Doctor Strange, the current series, current run of the Doctor Strange comics.
And we'll see what else we might be able to throw in there by the time the competition ends. But thank you so much for listening. As always, it's great to be talking to you about Marvel again, and we will be back again in a few weeks' time with our first Summer Strange podcast.
Exactly. All leading to Doctor Strange in October 2016. Take care, everyone, and we'll speak with you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye now.
Bye.